Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cosmic Convention, the Pickles Parker Podcast where we talk about the greatest show in the galaxy, Doctor Who. Now today I'm joined by a special guest yet again. I'm joined today by Joe Brennan. Say hello.
Hello. It's me.
Yes, it is Joe Brennan, everyone. Now, obviously, Joe, I suppose recently, I guess, is where you've really gained prominence in the YouTube scene. But you've obviously got a YouTube channel titled by your name, Joe Brennan. And
I do, yeah.
I first discovered you. Well, I first discovered you because for those who may not know, I do a quiz with people such as Time of the Whovians United, Faries, Harbo, Walms, although he doesn't do it anymore. But anyway, he used to do it, and Cynical Who, amongst other people. And Joe was invited to join, and I didn't really know who Joe was up until that point. However, obviously, I've since discovered his channel, and it's very good. And you've obviously since then, obviously before then as well, but since then as well, gained quite a lot of traction from your YouTube channel. And personally, I really like your YouTube channel, Joe. I think the Doctor Who video essay community, I suppose, has kind of grown in the last year, I suppose, because obviously before you had people like Full Fat Videos making the occasional Doctor Who video essay, and I guess if you go even further back than that, people like Stu Bagfor and Mr. TARDIS, not necessarily video essays, but kind of scripted reviews, I suppose, in that sort of sense. But obviously this year with, like, obviously, as I mentioned, Harbo is obviously a massive one. He's blown up recently in terms of video essays. And then yourself as well, obviously, making great Doctor Who video essays. And I feel as if, like, that genre, I suppose, of Doctor Who content is kind of come into its own in the last year.
Yeah, it really, really has. And I didn't kind of hop on the bandwagon because I noticed other people were doing it. It's something I've really wanted to do for a while. I think I've spoken to Matt from Full Fat Videos a few times. Yeah, we're friendly, but I wouldn't say friends, but he's a very lovely guy. And he, I was looking at the Full Fat Videos and I just thought, I love that format. I love, I love people writing kind of great arguments and putting them in a kind of visual format that is really easy to digest. And I just thought, yeah, I'd like to do that because, I've been for years, I've been writing like blog posts about Doctor Who, my articles for my school blog, and then I had a personal blog. And I just thought, well, I don't read blog posts. I don't read articles. I watch YouTube. Why don't I just make things for the format that I'm like my favorite? So I make things that I would want to watch. So I guess I really only started a few months ago. I think you say I've risen to prominence, but I don't think I'm there yet. I've got I'm getting, my videos have been doing way better than I was expecting, but I'm still hoping to continue growing.
Absolutely.
I don't have dreams of being a huge famous YouTube star, but I really like making the things I make, and I'd really love for lots of people to see them. I think that's really the goal for me. And, it's going well.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think especially I think you're one of the, at least in terms of the Doctor Who community, I think you're one of the best in terms of subscriber to view ratio, because obviously, I mean, I'm not sure how many subscribers you're on right now. I think it's about 600 and something. Yet your videos always crack over 1k views, if not like consistently crack over 1.5k views, which is obviously great. And yeah, I certainly hear what you're saying about, like, wouldn't read blog posts. So you decide to make video essays. I think that's a really interesting angle, because it's not something I've really thought about before, but when you actually sit and think about it, video essays are essentially you just like reading a blog post or with obviously some very nice editing and some footage in the background. And obviously it is a very modern way to to absorb those kind of like opinions and arguments. But I certainly have a love for the video essay genre. I think it is one of my favorite genres, or not just with Doctor Who, but YouTube in general. When you watch a good video essay, you really feel fulfilled. And I think often with video essays, it's the best format to really get an opinion across, because obviously you're putting it across, and I think you're great at this, Joe. You're putting it across very professionally, very analytically, but also I think video essays have just a great variety as well. So, for example, for research for this podcast, I was rewatching your most recent video essay, and something I noticed is while you're very analytical in it, you also, crack a lot of jokes as well. So I think video essays certainly allow you to have a great blend of being, humorous, but also showing that you can certainly edit and I guess make very professional analytical videos as well. I think it really offers a great blend in that sense.
Yeah, I think a lot of what I love in like any kind of content creator is a personality.
Yeah.
And I think I'm not going to name any names at all, and I'm not even talking about the Doctor Who community, but a lot of people are really popular and they get loads of views and they put out loads of videos, but I have no idea who they are or kind of how they'd be in a conversation. And
Yeah.
I think so much about what I love about YouTube is kind of not necessarily like you feel like you have a kind of not a friendship, but you feel like you know this person and you like this person.
Well, yeah,
and
yeah.
I like kind of YouTube personalities, and so the kind of content creators I'm drawn towards on YouTube are just people like Mr. Sunday Movies, who I've watched
Yeah.
for years. Very funny, very kind of opinionated and unique. Houston Productions is fantastic. I think he brings a fantastic kind of he's a filmmaker himself, so he brings a kind of editing style that is very cinematic to his videos. Whereas I think the kind of entry point for me is I do consider myself like a writer. I write the scripts. I used to write the articles, and so my focus is always on what I'm saying rather than how I'm presenting it, and everything else I'm kind of just doing to get what I'm saying across. I know a lot of people focus on the editing a lot more.
Yeah.
I hadn't edited anything until earlier this year when I made my first video. I was actually writing as you realize it's something you can just. A video essay is like a read out article, because I was writing something about Missy and it wasn't feeling right, and I was just like, oh, I know, I can say it. So, I have a background in, I did a lot of kind of drama and performance at school, and I haven't been doing that for a few years now, and I was missing it. And it's like, okay, well, I can just use my voice and read my essays.
Yeah.
I think, the video essay brings together like, performance, writing, editing, and for some people filmmaking as well. So I think it's either a medium that's going to get really oversaturated and people are going to be fatigued with, or it's just going to keep growing. I can't quite work it out. I'm hoping it's the latter, because I've only just got on board. So
yeah, certainly. And I think obviously, as you said, is video essays are like reading a blog post, but it's not as simple as that, because as someone as I've been recently, today actually, been trying to make my first video essay, and I finished writing the script and I was trying to record it, but actually I don't know whether this is just a me thing, but I often find reading it quite difficult, because obviously you want to get that level of personality and inflection in your voice, so it doesn't just sound monotone, for example. But also I find reading, I guess maybe this could just be a me thing, but in terms of reading like scripted like reading something you've written down, I often find that I just end up fluffing everything a lot of the time, so then I have to keep on going back and re-record this line and then go back, and it certainly isn't an easy process, because I think a lot of people just think you're just reading something you've written down, it can't be that hard. But there's obviously a lot of factors that go into it. As I said, obviously the voice, just reading it, at least for me, can sometimes be a difficult task. And then obviously you've got the editing as well, which is quite a thorough process. And then obviously just the writing as well. Obviously I think a lot of video essays, particularly for me, obviously, I mean, I don't just make, I haven't made a video essay, but obviously in terms of my content, I make a lot of different content. So it's all about what, what would I make a video essay and what wouldn't I, for example. And I think a lot of the time when making a video essay, like I've had a few ideas for video essays that I'd personally want to do, and I think it's always thinking about like that idea of that opinion, or that perspective, I suppose might be a better way of saying it, that I guess no one else has really spoken about, because I'm writing this video essay is a sneak peek for everyone, but I'm currently I finished writing, but I'm in the making of a video essay on the snowman, because I watched that recently in my marathon, and I just found that I had a lot of things to say about it. At least I personally hadn't really ever heard anyone speak about like the kind of things I took from the snowman and the perspective I got from it while watching. So I guess that was what really drove me to think I'm going to write a video essay on this. So yeah, I think there's obviously a load of different factors that go into a video essay, and yeah, it's not an easy process at all. There's a lot of different factors that go into making a video essay so great.
I would say the one you were talking about, the recording process being really tricky. That's always the one I underestimate. Right, I set aside loads of time for writing. In fact, writing's the one I love, and I write for fun, and I write as my hobby, and for my uni work, and for my YouTube channel. I'm currently sitting on about 3 pretty much done scripts, because when I'm editing and I want to procrastinate, I'm just like, I'll just write. So that's a part of the process I never have any kind of issue with. I love it. But then recording, I'm like, okay, I'll because I like to put out a video every 2 weeks. So I'm like, okay, the script will be done by Wednesday, and then Thursday night I'll record it. And then recording takes me a lot longer than I thought. I think I'm a real kind of perfectionist, and I want to sound good, and I want to sound, eloquent, and I want to bring my personality to it. And I think for me, something I had to get over, and it might be good advice to you or anyone else who wants to write something like this. There is a tendency when you're writing a script to overwrite and to use too much kind of tricky vocabulary. And because I'm used to this, because I write a lot, I wrote a lot for blogs. And in order to get across tone and personality, you have to use your words, because you can't use your voice. But I found for these scripts, it's better to strip it back a little bit and let your tone do some of the work, because you don't need to make up for it with hilarious words. I mean, they help, but you don't need to write 5 adjectives into one sentence. You can just say one adjective in a certain way, and it gets the point across a lot better. So I think you have to be conscious of the recording process while writing, which is something I'm still getting used to.
Certainly, I think that's brilliant advice. Thanks so much. I don't even know if I've ever said this actually on the channel, but at A-level, all 3 of the A-levels I'm taking, media, English literature and history, are all very essay-based. So I'm obviously writing a lot and constantly trying to use obviously good vocabulary and obviously format sentences in a very complicated and highbrow way. So perhaps maybe the reason why I'm struggling to record this video essay is perhaps I have maybe just put into too many sophisticated vocabulary. Perhaps I don't know, but yeah, certainly I do.
I'm not for any way saying completely dumb it down and get rid of any kind of nuance. Don't write in complete simple sentences with no adjectives or anything. But yeah, I think you don't underestimate the amount you can convey with your voice. Because sometimes that can do half of the work for you. And you maybe don't need to have 150% of the work done. Maybe dial back the script. Might help.
Certainly. And I think what you said about obviously communicating emotion through your voice for the video essay is quite important as well, because you don't just want to watch a video essay and someone's really monotone. And I think that was the problem for me, is that whenever I record my regular videos, I'm not going to say tone doesn't necessarily matter, because it absolutely does. I try and be as energetic and enthusiastic as I can be. But I think the problem is, because I'm so focused on how this video essay will turn out, I'm just constantly obsessed with how do I sound? Do I sound energetic enough? Do I sound too energetic? And on the flip side, do I sound too monotone? And again, similar to yourself, I am quite a perfectionist in that sense. So if I listen to it back, like the recording of the first first paragraph and I fluff like one line ever so slightly, I just have to re-record it, because I suppose with video essays, a lot of the time they are pretty perfect in terms of that. And I guess in terms of with me trying to enter the video essay genre a little bit, I suppose obviously because I'm not going to say it's a saturated genre, because I absolutely don't think it is, but it's obviously quite a popular genre. So there's a lot of people making video essays. And even like not necessarily dedicated video essay channels such as yourself, such as Harbo, but even people such as, our friend Cynical Who has been making a lot of video essays recently. Time of the Whovians make a fair bit of video essays. So certainly I think it's all about, like for me, I'm constantly thinking, how do I make it perfect? And all this sorts of stuff. But I guess in a sense maybe I need to stop worrying. But I guess there's a lot of competition obviously in the video essay genre. And also I think when you've got like an idea that you think is really good, you obviously don't want to underserve it. You want to present that idea as best as you can. Otherwise all the like bubbling ideas you have in your head, if they don't come across on the page or in the video, then obviously that's a massive shame. So I think it is a case of that you have that idea and you can only really do it once, so you want to make it the best you can, which I guess is the same with anything, not just video essays. That's a small part of it, but obviously with anything, when writing anything, obviously that could apply with films, with whatever. You always want to get the most out of anything. And I think certainly when you have an idea for a video essay, there's something I was conscious about when writing this video essay, is that I really want to make it the best I possibly can. Otherwise,
You've wasted the opportunity to talk about that one thing. Yeah,
I've wasted the opportunity to get that idea across.
I'm actually like currently sitting on a few ideas still that I've had for a few years, but I'm just thinking I'm going to wait until I'm kind of more established, not necessarily with a subscriber count, but with like a kind of a consistent style and way of, once I'm more used to making video essays, I'll make these things, because I didn't want to make them my first videos and edit them on Microsoft PowerPoint and use a terrible tinny mic and do all sorts of awful things. I just wanted to, like, I've got these ideas and I think they could be great, and you just want to make them great, and maybe that involves waiting until you're able to make them great. So I don't think, I think one of those videos that I wanted to make, one of these ideas I've had, was my most recent one, which was at the time of recording this, the Doctor Who characters being too important one, the Timeless Children, the hybrid Clara. And I've been thinking about that for ages, and I finally had the faith in myself to make it. And I'm really glad I did, because I don't know if it was the Jodie Whittaker in the thumbnail or whatever, but that's done really well.
Yeah, it has done. It has done
really well received.
Well. It has done. It has done certainly well. And yeah, obviously, I guess in terms of, you said obviously, don't limit your ideas. I kind of said it as well. And something I admire about you, Joe, is even though you did say you have like a video schedule of every 2 weeks, I suppose, what I admire about you is you don't kind of like keep it to a strict deadline. Like obviously Harbo has a strict deadline, one video every week, and obviously his are extremely high quality. I still don't quite know how he manages it, but obviously when creating and having these ideas and really trying to get the best out of them, obviously sometimes it just takes time to perfect a video and a video essay. And I think that's what I admire so much about your channel, is even though you may not like upload every single week, every single time you do upload, it's always a very high quality video, and you can certainly tell that you've taken a lot of time into perfecting them, which obviously something I admire.
Well, I'm glad that comes across, because I think the last upload I did, I was really stressing. I was like, I've said it'll be Sunday, and I'm just kind of, I've sat on it for so long. It's not done yet. I could probably rush it out for like Sunday evening, but it would be rubbish. And I just thought, no, you know what? I'll sit on it for a bit more. And the longer I did, and the more I worked on it, and the kind of slower I took it, and I didn't push myself too far, the better I think it got. I came up with more ideas. I rewrote some sections and re-recorded a few. And I'm really glad I did, because, the videos, it's not suffered from it. I don't think it's not, but I am Matt from Full Fat gave me the advice of trying to maintain a consistent upload schedule. And I think if I can't do that, I will just say, okay, I'll make a video every 3 weeks or once a month, because I'd so much rather be happy with what I'm uploading than just, get one out every day and hate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And even though a lot of people say like having a consistent upload schedule is the key to getting views, but obviously in your case that doesn't really seem to apply, because obviously you take your time in your video essays and you just put them out whenever you're happy with them, and they still get amazing views. So clearly I think people are just like appreciating the fact that you are putting so much time into these video essays, and even though if they're not like as regular as perhaps like maybe other channels, I think that other channels don't quite have the quality that obviously you put in, because obviously it's quite easy to make news videos. They're quite easy to make. I find that myself. I've been putting out I think the reason why I've been putting out a lot more content recently is because some of them have been news videos, which is obviously good for views, but they're quite easy to make, and obviously you don't have that same amount of creative joy when just quickly banging up a news video as you do putting time into really developing an idea that you have with a video essay. So yeah, I think in terms of upload schedules, it's all pretty relative. It's all whatever you want your channel to be, I suppose. If you're purely a Doctor Who news channel, then you obviously need to be uploading regularly whenever there's news. But I think in terms of a channel like yours, which is obviously purely based on videos that you take your time on and you really perfect, then ultimately, I mean, I'm not a big expert on the algorithm at all. Far from it. I've been talking to Cynical Who, Fowries and Harbour Worms recently about perhaps how to really tackle the algorithm in terms of my videos, and particularly this video essay. So I'm really not an expert at all, far from it, but I think certainly that even though maybe a consistent upload schedule may be the best thing, I think your audience will really appreciate like that dedication put into a video. And I suppose it's all of a matter of maybe consistent uploads will get your videos out more, but also if someone sees like the video essay you've put a lot of time into, they're more likely to subscribe off of the back of that. Whereas if you just like banged up a video essay you made in 2 days, maybe more people would be likely to see it, but maybe not as many people would be likely to subscribe. So I think it's all a case of weighing that up, and I certainly think that in terms of video essays you've certainly got the best approach, and I think your videos really benefit from that.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm still getting used to making them. I think I'm getting faster every time I do it.
Yeah.
Because I've never edited anything before. The first video I actually uploaded was on this channel was a video about Scongo, which was back in March, and then my actual essay started in August, so that was quite a big gap. But that one was edited using Microsoft PowerPoint because I had no faith in myself at all. I just screen recorded me flicking through, a PowerPoint presentation. I think maybe in a year or so I will remake that video because I think it's a great video, and it's a great story that deserves to be told better. And once I'm able to do that, I think I will.
Yeah. Well, obviously, segueing into Scongo then I suppose, because obviously Scongo is just a ridiculous meme in the fandom. But I suppose as someone myself, I'm not amazingly clued up on the history of Scongo, I suppose, or what Scongo is. I became familiar with Scongo pretty late, I suppose. So I guess for all the 2 people who may not know what Scongo is, I suppose in your own words, describe what Scongo is and how it came about.
You see, I made that video because I kept being asked what the deal was with Scongo, and every time I tried to say it, I was just like, "Oh, this just sounds so ridiculous." Because you need to give so much context and everything.
Yeah.
I will basically say that back in 2017, it's always been a problem in fandom, every fandom, and is gatekeeping. Is people saying, you're not a real fan if you don't like this, or if you've never heard of this. Oh, you haven't listened to Spare Parts. You're not a real fan of the Cybermen. It's like, well, come on now. please don't stand at the gate of fandom and stop people enjoying the things they enjoy.
Yeah.
You're not a true Doctor Who fan if you haven't seen the classic series, which is absolutely ridiculous, because you can be a fan of whatever era you want and you're still a fan, right? If you call yourself a fan, you are one. You can, if the only thing you like is the Bells of St. John, but you watch it 4 times a day, you are a Doctor Who fan just like anyone else. You're a weird one, but I'm not going to judge. So I found it very funny to try and annoy and gatekeep the gatekeeping fans. So people who held it very high, the fact that they were Doctor Who fans was very important to them, and they were the true fans, and they were going to protect the fandom from anyone else. And I thought that it was funny to mess with them. So me and my friend, we made these funny posts in Doctor Who Facebook groups that were like, who's your favorite kind of Doctor Who character? And there would be the Daleks, the Cybermen, the Slitheen, the Sontarans, and then my friend, in one of the pictures he made, put this blurry black and white photo of my friend into it and just said Scongo in brackets from the classic series. And then which is genius, and I'm so annoyed I didn't think of it. So all these people in the group were like, "What? Who's Scongo? I've never heard of Scongo." And then, you've never heard of Scongo, right? He's quite a big deal. You're probably not as much of a Doctor Who fan as me. And then you get the response of like, I love Doctor Who. I'm a huge fan. You're lying. And then it became funny. I think it got shared to Doctor Who TARDIS posting, which is a kind of meme shit posting group on Facebook that I've been in since the start. It's fantastic. And so it got shared in there, and suddenly hundreds of people were flocking to this group. I think they've all since been banned because it was annoying everyone. But they flocked there to be like, Scongo, brilliant episodes. Oh yeah, the bongos of Scongo is my favorite. And just not bullying. I hope. I don't know. It's hard to say because it was just so funny, and because I think it was just a bit of fun to kind of rile up these people who were being kind of annoying. And I think hopefully it was not too mean-spirited. I certainly didn't see it that way. I think it was just, let's have some fun pretending that this guy's a Doctor Who villain. And then it kind of, in TARDIS posting, just got this huge life of its own. He was edited into so many different episodes. There was Wikipedia articles, fan art, like petitions. I think if you search Google, there's this petition to bring him back for Series 11 that was made in like 2018. It just went insane, and it was so funny. I think it's a funny meme. Some people absolutely hate it. But I think there's an extra level of kind of surrealism because it's just the face of my friend that's been slightly edited. And since then all sorts of things have happened. I think there's been a couple of resurgences. I think Tumblr found it at one point and made loads of memes about that, and it kind of became a completely different beast, and I think in the new digital collectible trading card thing that's currently being released, apparently in the final game, Scongo appears in a couple of bits of artwork. And so I had to speak to one of the developers about that. And I think that's hilarious.
Oh, it's amazing.
So it's just completely grown. The video, you can watch the video. Anyone who's listening to this can check the video out because it kind of sums that up, but includes examples. And something that happened was lots of fans went to conventions and got doctors to say that Scongo was the best villain. So Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, Paul McGann, David Bradley, John Leeson, Peter Purvis. I think they've all said that Scongo was the best villain. Mandip Gill said it as well.
Jesus.
So it's one of the things I'm most proud of because I kind of saw it kind of grow.
Yeah, absolutely. It's truly incredible. I think to just like create just a meme is a bit of a joke really, and then to just see it just get so popular to the fact that you know it's so well known in the fandom, and even like people have gotten actual actors who've played the Doctor and companions to say Scongo is the best villain. It's just insane really, because obviously a lot of people, you know, myself included, have thought, oh yeah, this will be a funny joke, and just post it and nothing comes of it. But you know, the fact that Scongo has just, you know, gone so far and had such a long life as well, it's just incredible. I mean, you can't have thought when just like making that post way back when that it would just blow up as much as it has.
See, I remember just being at school in 2017 and getting a message just like, have you seen it? I was like, what do you mean? Check Doctor Who TARDIS posting. I was like, all right, yeah. Looked at it. Top post was Peter Davison saying Scongo's the best villain. It was the first time. It's just like, what is this? What is going on? That's so bizarre. And then from there, it just got more and more insane. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It is insane. Obviously, all of you mentioned, and I think obviously in terms of now, it's got a bit of a resurgence. I'm pretty sure the Confused Adipose kind of took it on as well, and it's become so much
bizarre. Yeah, because Joe from Confused Adipose, he got a load of comments because he looks like Scongo, and this is a completely ridiculous thing to happen because he looks nothing like my friend. He, the picture of my friend is edited, and it's it was initially very blurry, and then it was run through a kind of HD filter, and it now looks nothing like him really. But suddenly it does look like Joe Street. Yeah. It looked, and he was getting comments, and he looked it up, and yeah, I think that was just very funny.
Yeah, certainly.
To see that happen. That's actually where I first found Joe's channel, because he linked to my video in his video about it.
Yeah.
Which is very funny.
Yeah, absolutely. So, that's certainly funny as well. And I think the fact that you every single Twitter post that says like, which villain would you like to return in the next series, you'll at least get 1 or 2 comments that will say Scongo. It's just incredible to
it can't seem to die.
No, it's just gone so far, and yeah, it's absolutely hilarious, especially obviously when you were speaking about obviously the main thing you did, the main reason, shall I say, that you created Scongo was to you know, mess with all those gatekeeping fans. It's just hilarious to me, because it does sound like something people would say, like, oh, you haven't heard of Scongo, the best villain in the classic series? You're not a true fan. And it is just hilarious, and obviously there's so many different like mock-up stories as well, like the Timeless Scongo and all these other just stories that Scongo was supposedly in. It's just incredible, and yeah, hopefully it will never die.
It can't seem to. It really every time I think it is, something ridiculous happens. Yeah. I think the most recent time, all the memes about him were just pretending these episodes existed and making fun of, you know, scenes that didn't exist. Like, does anyone think it's weird that Scongo went back to gloat to the Doctor instead of just leaving him in 1612? It's like this, and it became making fun of Doctor Who and the predictability of it, because it all sounded really, really believable. Like, honestly, if you show that and then just another Doctor Who meme to someone who knows nothing about it, it's not at all more or less plausible than actual things that happen in Doctor Who, and I think that's funny. But, I guess that's the Scongo. A brief history.
A brief history of Scongo, yeah, certainly. I haven't done it, but I'd love to find someone who likes Doctor Who, who's a fan of the Revive series, but someone who just has no knowledge of the classic series, and just trying to convince them that Scongo is actually a villain, and see if it will work. I'd really like to try that at some point, because I think it would have some pretty funny results. But no, it is just incredible that how far Scongo has gone. You know, it was once your creation, your child, and to just see how far it's blown up. It's essentially known to most people in the fandom now. I still just can't believe how much it blown up, though, to just put it in one group chat, and then to just see it just blow up as much as it has, and to see like clips of Peter Davison just saying Scongo is the best villain is just it is just insane. and yeah, it is just incredible to have Scongo, to create Scongo, and then just to see how far Scongo has gone. How many people? Because I was interested in this because obviously Scongo is so big now. How many people, I guess, have kind of found you through Scongo, or have there been any people who have been watching your videos and then just been like, "Holy crap, this guy was the guy who made Scongo"? You know,
I think it's a lot of people seem to have my top video with kind of double the second video is still the Scongo one.
oh yeah,
Which is annoying to me because it's my the quality is very bad.
Yeah.
But it was the first one I made, whatever. So a lot of people saw that video, subscribed for that, or at least watched that throughout, and then came back and saw my other videos. So it has given me a good start, kind of being somewhat
Yeah.
known for my involvement with the Scongo meme. I didn't create the original image, but I created pretty much the
Yeah.
next 100 after that. So I'm the one that forced it into existence after
Yeah.
the initial search, and brought TARDIS posting on board. So yeah, I've never been kind of recognized as the Scongo guy. My friend whose face is the Scongo meme. Apparently, someone saw him at university. And was like, I think I've seen Scongo around my uni.
Christ, that is incredible.
So the fact he's been recognised is really funny. I won't give his name or anything. He's, but he's
Loads of people just turn up outside his house wearing Scongo merch, all wanting an autograph. Oh dear.
yeah. So I think I don't know. I initially when I started my channel for that video, I was really kind of unsure about what to call it and what kind of branding to put on it and what
Yeah.
kind of because that's a big deal. What are you going to call your channel? And I
Yeah.
nearly called it like Scongo thing or whatever, but I didn't want to kind of limit myself to one stupid internet meme.
Yeah.
And then when I was writing like Face of Joe, to be it for a funny
cool.
Doctor Who name, I thought actually I don't want to limit myself to just Doctor Who either. I think I'm right now I could be considered a Who-tuber, I believe they're called.
Yes.
But I'm hoping to branch out, not because I think I'm better than just being a Who-tuber, but because I don't think I have enough opinions in my head to sustain a whole channel about Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Because with video essays, you always have to have an idea of what to talk about.
Well, yeah.
A lot of them are arguments, and you have to put forward an argument, and you have to have that in your head already. And it's quite hard to just be like, aha, I've thought of another thing that goes on my huge list of potential videos. Because sometimes I think when I've made my first video was
Yeah.
about my first video essay was about Missy and her introduction in Dark
Yeah.
Water, and that had been something I'd been thinking about for years. And then after that, I was like, okay, what now? It's like you put all your ideas into the first thing, and then you're like, oh, I've got to now sustain this for more than one video. So I did a really detailed analysis of World Enough and Time, The Doctor Falls, and Twice Upon a Time. And I really liked making those, but I think there's a slight difference between a kind of really in-depth review and a video essay, because I wasn't really making an argument. I was just saying, here's why it's great.
Yeah.
And it was, I think Harbo really, his videos are more in line with that than a kind of full fat video
Yeah,
essay.
certainly.
And I'm not at all saying that one is better than the other. I'm just saying that there's a very different approach that goes into making them.
Well, yeah,
And
absolutely. I think a lot of Harbo's, I guess, before he started like his massive review series that he's doing now, I guess those could be classed as more video essays, I suppose. Whereas now, I suppose, mainly because he's taken on this like ridiculous task of doing a review every single week to an incredibly high quality, that he's almost taken, obviously, the format that he used for his video essays, and then obviously transferred that to making reviews. But I certainly understand what you mean, that obviously there is a difference between a video essay and a review. And I suppose because a video essay format, shall I say, is so popular, often it can be used to do different things. I think a lot of the time, a lot of people do reviews. I guess it all depends of what do you class as a video essay, I suppose, because often
I would
for
say
me,
my reviews of those Series 10 ones, I would say, are very much video essay style analyses, right? It's the same style and the same kind of argument thing and my same way of writing, but I'm not making a point of how this episode deals with blank or what they should have done differently about this.
Yeah.
It's just I talk about the things in the episode I like and dislike, which is very much a review, but kind of married to the video essay format in a way that I think works, and I think Harbo's got his to work really well.
Yeah.
And it just took so much out of me making those three in
I can imagine.
a few weeks. I had making half an hour on each of them. After that I had no idea what to do. I was just
certainly
so exhausted.
Certainly a massive task, and I certainly suppose, like, I did it was quite short, but probably about a month ago now, although I'd had it pretty much edited and scripted all the way back in June. I just couldn't really be bothered to do anything with it, and I finally did. I did a review of the Andrew Garfield film Under the Silver Lake, and I wouldn't class it as a video essay, but it was probably one of the most video essay-esque things I'd done, in the sense that I scripted it out and then obviously put I didn't put clips in the background because I really couldn't be bothered, but I just put like images in the background, and a load of images as well, because with a lot of my videos, like the news videos or even the Big Finish reviews I've been doing recently, obviously I put pictures in the background, and obviously they change, because if it was just the same picture it would be pretty boring. But it's not like every sentence or couple of sentences is a new picture, whereas for that video I really try to make the editing of the images in the background like short and snappy, as if it was clips in the background. So even though I wouldn't class that as a video essay, because it was just simply a review, it was in that sort of style, I suppose. And I guess with this video essay I'm working on at the moment, I guess I think at certain points it does kind of blur between a review and this is my hot take, I suppose. I think it started off as this is my hot take, and then I think I added a bit to it that made it more of a review. But I think certainly, even though it is a review in a certain sense, it still has like an overall point to it that would make it more of a video essay, I think. Because even though I do point out things that ultimately, I guess you could say, don't really contribute to the argument, overall,
I think that's fine. I mean, a video essay, it's a broad church. There's so many different things on the internet could be called video essays, and I don't want to gatekeep them and say this is and this isn't. But it's just there are just loads of different ways you can go about it, and loads of different kind of genres within that.
Certainly.
And I think it's about finding the format and the style that you think is good, and that also for me sustainable, because I can't just make half an hour videos every week about really, really dissecting big episodes like the Dr. Falls, which, although it does seem like I'm editing that video all the time, because I copyright for that one video has just been so awful, which is annoying, because I think it's where my videos kind of started getting quite good.
It's certainly a great video. Those series of videos are really awesome, and I think especially that's something I've held off of doing in terms of like really analytical reviews of something, because I guess there's just so much that would go into that, and doing the episode justice. Like, it's one thing doing like a concept or a hot take justice, but it's another taking an episode or a series of episodes that you really, really love and really trying to do them justice. I think I've been really I started writing it a couple of months ago, and then I just stopped writing it, but my this is controversial in itself, but my favourite story of all of Doctor Who, classic and modern, and there is a lot of bias towards this, but my favourite story would be the Pandora Opens The Big Bang, which is obviously quite controversial, but I've been thinking of maybe trying to persuade, not necessarily persuade people, but kind of give my perspective to why I would consider it the best and why I just enjoy it so much. But I think the problem is, obviously, that's two episodes, both the Pandora Opens and The Big Bang are very different in terms of setting and what's in them, and I think I really would have to actually sit down, rewatch those couple of episodes a number of times, or maybe not a number of times, but at least another time, maybe another 2 times with notes, really trying to dissect it and really trying to do that justice. Whereas with this Snowman video essay, it's more, even though I do say Matt Smith's performance is good or the direction is good, all this kind of stuff, the main point I'm making, I suppose, which is that I think The Snowmen is a really good introduction to Victoria and Clara. It's set up as an introductory story, and that it actually has it serves as a great blueprint for what the second half of the Matt Smith era could have been, but ultimately Moffat kind of throws it all away with the final twist. And the fact that it's essentially, we see the Doctor through Clara's eyes the whole time. It's a bit similar to Rose in that sense.
It really could have been a soft reboot.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess in a way it kind of is.
Well, yeah,
but,
I think that's the thing, is that, the Doctor is introduced through Clara's eyes. He's at a different point in his life, so you slowly learn more about the Doctor through Clara. Obviously, the tone is completely different to the first half of Series 7. It's very fantastical and whimsical, and I feel as if it has an identity, which I'm not really sure Series 7 Part 1 up to that point really had. I feel as if it had lost its identity, whereas I feel like The Snowman really has one. Obviously, like I said about it introducing Clara really well and almost being a soft reboot, it using that narrative device reintroduces the Doctor and we learn more about him, seeing him in a different light. I think Clara is really good in that as well, and she shows a lot of promise. And
she's brilliant.
Yeah, and ultimately the fact that Moffat essentially throws it away at the end with that final twist makes it feel completely redundant. It's an introduction, it is wholeheartedly an introduction story for a companion we never travel with. I think it makes the Great Intelligence plot kind of weak, even though if you put it into context as a companion introduction story, the fact that the Great Intelligence's plan is low-key doesn't really matter. But the fact is, when you rip that away, because we don't travel with this version of Clara, the whole story is then, you could call it centered on the Great Intelligence, because it then becomes more known for a story and less of what it's trying to do for the characters. So then it makes that plot ultimately fail, which I don't think it would have done if we'd actually ended up travelling with the Victorian Clara. And I was watching this and I just thought, obviously I've heard people say that, they should have travelled with the Victorian Clara quite a few times, but I've never really seen someone talk about that perspective of it being like an introductory story for a companion. No. And kind of discuss that, and because the thing is, I've never really been a big fan of The Snowmen. I thought it was alright. I never really liked it on broadcast.
It was my first Christmas special.
Interesting. It was my second one, and I think the reason I didn't like it is because I was a lot younger back then. Amy and Rory were my first companions, so I was a bit like, it feels so different. The Doctor's different. It's not got Amy and Rory. The title sequence is different. The TARDIS is different. This isn't my Doctor Who. And not my Doctor. I just found it a very weird experience sitting for it because it felt so different at the time. And this is bearing in mind, at the time I was a big fan of Series 7 Part 1. Obviously, in years gone by, I've kind of re-evaluated it, and I'd still say that Series 7 as a whole is a bit of a guilty pleasure for me, but I acknowledge that there are massive faults in it, and it really could have been so much better than it was. But I just think, because I've been doing it in my marathon, watching it, and then all of a sudden, I don't know why, but of all the times I've seen The Snowmen, it was on that rewatch where I suddenly watched it with like a different perspective. And I just watched it and I thought, actually, when you think about it in this way, it's actually quite an enjoyable story, and it actually shows a lot of promise for what the Matt Smith era could be. But unfortunately, that final twist by Moffat, he just couldn't help himself with those interconnected stories, and he just kind of throws it away. And I think you get that with a lot of writers or directors or whatever, when they kind of almost, where they accidentally find gold with an idea, and they do nothing with it. I think the whole idea of like The Timeless Child, the whole idea of the Time Lords essentially taking all their powers from a child and manipulating that child, and then the Doctor needing to reevaluate, whether the regeneration abilities are her birthright, whether she can regenerate, how does she feel about the Time Lords. I made a video called Fixing Doctor Who and the Timeless Child arc, where I essentially thought it would have been really cool if obviously Gallifrey is destroyed, and then this is going to sound very fanficky. It makes more sense in the video, but at some point, the Doctor ends up in a parallel universe, led on by the Master, where Gallifrey is still alive. And through the whole series, the Doctor's been slowly learning different tidbits of the timeless, what the Timeless Child is and why Gallifrey was destroyed. And then finally, when she gets there and thinks that, I'm going to save Gallifrey, I'm going to stop what happened to the Gallifrey in my universe happening again, she finally then discovers that the Timeless Child was exploited and experimented on, and then kind of would make her reevaluate whether actually she thinks Gallifrey deserves saving and all this kind of stuff. I think the whole idea of the Timeless Child, if you disconnect it from the Doctor, is actually quite fascinating, and I think Chibnall accidentally struck gold with that idea. He accidentally came across it, because he clearly only ever created the Timeless Child idea as an alternate backstory for the Doctor. That was clearly the only function he ever created it for.
Oh, let's think of the Timeless Child and then let's make it the Doctor. It started with her. I think another thing he accidentally stumbled on was Joe Martin as the Doctor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is, I need to make a video on her, and because she's just perfect. I love her, and I think she in trying to set up this thing, he accidentally gave us a better Doctor than the current Doctor. This is my opinion, but I just think I need more Ruth Doctor in the show and in my life, and I think but who knows where the show will go.
Absolutely.
I think I'm not as kind of pessimistic as a lot of other people when it comes to the show and the current situation. I think I've only been a fan since 2012, so I don't have like childhood nostalgia for the glory years of Doctor Who. I watched the Russell T Davies era all in one sitting, and most of the Moffat in like a few weeks in 2012 when I was I think I was 12. So I just watched all of those and took it all in and was like, great, that's Doctor Who, I'm all caught up. And then I was just kind of vibing with it, kind of just enjoying it as it came, not really thinking about it too much, right up until, I think series 10 was when I was first like, oh my God, this is great. I'm really enjoying myself. I mean, I guess there were great episodes, maybe the end of series 9. I'm making a video at the moment about the Christmas specials, and I think
interesting.
This is apparently a hot take. I mentioned it in a conversation recently.
Yes,
and
you did.
I love Husband to River Song.
And what is wrong with you, Joe? What is wrong with you? Oh dear.
But I think that the Face the Raven, Heaven Sent, Hellbent, Husbands, Doctor Mysterio, series 10, that string of episodes, glorious. Maybe a few missteps here and there, but I just think that that was a good time to be a fan. And, I'm ready for something like that to happen again. And to be honest, I'm not overly fussed if it takes a while, because I don't know. I'm a huge Doctor Who fan. Obviously, I make Doctor Who videos on YouTube, but it's not. I don't think I'm as emotionally invested in it as a lot of other fans are. I think the thing that I emotionally invest my stuff into is Star Wars. I think that's where I put all my kind of hopes and dreams and faith. No, I don't believe in, I don't pray to Princess Leia, but I do pretty much all except that, because she's my hero. But I think that series for me is the one that I get really upset if it's bad, and I get really, really happy if it's good. And I get really excited for it, and I get really disappointed by it. And, that's where all my emotions are, I think, just because that's what I was into as a kid, and that's always been my thing. And for Doctor Who, that's just something I enjoy and I like watching, but I'm not kind of, if I never enjoyed it again, I think, I'd just stop watching at some point, but not
Yeah.
really be too upset. I think if some people were enjoying it, that would be fine. But Star Wars, I think I will always follow and always just be like, why are they going in this direction?
Yeah.
Who's that? Why are you giving him a film? You know,
Yeah. Yes.
where's the Ryan Johnson trilogy? You know,
Yeah.
I'll. I think just because I didn't get into Doctor Who when I was very little, because and this I mentioned it on Tom's podcast, but the reason I was terrified to get into Doctor Who was because I was on the playground at school in like June 2005. No, it's June 2007. Sorry. And Blink had just aired, and everyone at school in the playground was talking about the Weeping Angels and how terrifying they were, and I was just like, oh my god, I am never watching this show for as long as I live, because that sounds like the scariest thing on the planet. I've never been a guy who likes horror. I don't really like getting scared, and just the whole concept of the Weeping Angels and how terrified these children were around me. I must have been like year 2 or year 1, and I was just like, okay, no Doctor Who for me forever. And it was only after Sarah Jane Adventures ended that I was like, because I watched that because I didn't really, for a while, didn't really know it was related to Doctor Who. But after that ended, I was like, oh, might as well watch Doctor Who. I've heard it's similar. So and it turns out nothing was really as scary as I thought.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I guess I'm kind of the reverse of you, I suppose, in terms of Star Wars. So I got into Star Wars fairly, like, a lot later than most people. I think when I really started, obviously I was aware of Star Wars, of course, everyone is, but in terms of when I got into Star Wars, it was early 2015, which would have been when I was in year 7, probably about 11 or 12 years old. No, I would have been 11 actually. So obviously that's a lot later than most people would get into Star Wars when they're a lot younger. But obviously I had this friend at school, well, a couple of friends actually, who were like massive Star Wars fans, and as it goes with Doctor Who, I think especially now, no one really likes Doctor Who. It's not like the popular thing to be into. But I think that I had a lot of friends who liked Star Wars, because obviously it's a lot more popular. But I often found that even though I wouldn't consider myself a casual fan of Star Wars, I am, quite a big fan of Star Wars. I've never been as emotionally invested in it as something like Doctor Who. For example, with Star Wars, I'd have all my friends saying, watch the Clone Wars, read all this expanded media, and all that kind of stuff, which, obviously I am partially interested in, but I've never really delved into it because, but whereas with Doctor Who, obviously I've delved into stuff like Big Finish and novels and all that kind of stuff. So I think ultimately I'm almost the reverse, that even though I'm sorry to say this, Joe, I wasn't a big fan of The Last Jedi. And I think that I don't think I have on this channel actually. I don't know, it was ages ago. I may have ranted about The Last Jedi, I may have not of. It was quite a while ago.
I wouldn't have seen it if you did, I'm afraid.
No.
I avoid anyone saying any negative things about that, and I'm afraid we can never speak again, George.
I'm sorry.
I've got
Let's hang up this then.
A giant Ryan Johnson head over my desk, so he watches over.
Yeah, but I suppose, even though I have, I wasn't a big fan of The Last Jedi. I'm not the biggest fan of, the sequel trilogy in terms of where it's gone. I think it's a massive missed opportunity. I've never been as, I won't say rolled up's the right word, but in terms of, I'm a lot more passionate about Doctor Who, I suppose, which is why, even though my channel was originally, and I suppose still is in concept, not a Doctor Who channel. It's supposed to be, I talk about anything, Doctor Who, Marvel, DC, Star Wars, I've even spoken about, just like myself, I've spoken about a bit of like football stuff because I'm kind of interested in that as well. But I think because I'm just like the most passionate about anything in Doctor Who, like that's the thing I'm the most passionate about 100%. That's obviously was the main reason I started the channel even though I wanted to talk about these other things, that was the main thing I wanted to talk about, and it's obviously the main thing I talk about now. To the fact that many people would probably stumble across my channel and just kind of presume it's a Doctor Who channel because I make so many like Doctor Who videos, and I certainly used to. I think I actually spent a year where I just didn't talk about Doctor Who at all. It was after Series 11 and Resolution, I really just kind of lost enthusiasm for Doctor Who, so I just kind of spent a year talking about Star Wars, DC, Spider-Man, because obviously that was when Spider-Man Far From Home was coming out, Spider-Man PS4 had just come out, so I was really getting into that, so I just kind of spent a year talking about that really, and I guess it's only really this year that I've properly got back into making videos, and yeah, I suppose obviously I like a lot of stuff, but Doctor Who is certainly the thing I'm most passionate about. I certainly relate to you because you said obviously you never really witnessed the quote unquote glory days of Doctor Who, and neither did I. Although obviously I'm a bit younger than you. My first series was I started in a really odd place. So my first episode was The Girl Who Waited, and my first 4 episodes was The Girl Who Waited, The God Complex, Closing Time, and The Wedding of River Song, which is just bizarre.
No, that's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, especially as when watching The Wedding of River Song, I had no idea what was going on.
No, you wouldn't. It's hard to follow even when you're
exactly
watching the whole thing.
Yeah, my first appearance of the Cybermen was in Closing Time. My first appearance of River Song was at the end of Closing Time. The first ever thing I saw of a Dalek was in The Wedding of River Song. So yeah, it's very, very strange. But so yeah, even though obviously instantly after watching The Wedding of River Song, I went back and watched all of the RTD era and the Matt Smith stories I'd missed. Obviously, as you would. Obviously, technically, I've never witnessed the quote-unquote glory days on broadcast. And then I suppose similar to you, because you said that the first episode you actually watched was it Asylum of the Daleks? Was that the first one?
It was, yeah.
Watched, yes. So
the start of 7.
So the first series you've watched on broadcast, like from the start, was Series 7. I'm the same.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it's certainly interesting, and yeah, I've never really witnessed the quote unquote glory days of Doctor Who. So I guess maybe
take things back to the way they used to be. I say without having any real knowledge of how things used to be.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's why I probably have such a bias towards the Matt Smith era on my channel, is just because that's when I first started watching it. That's when I enjoyed it the most. So in terms of like my younger self, that's even though from like a wider fan perspective that you wouldn't call that the glory days, from my enjoyment as a young fan, those were the glory days, I suppose.
That's the case for a lot of people. I think it just so happens that the people who are on the internet now and the dominant things, I think it's the same with Star Wars. They grew up with the prequels, they grew up with the Russell T Davies era, and obviously the Russell T Davies era, David Tennant, they were fantastic. The show was so popular. And, I think you can't just say they're only popular now because of nostalgia. It was popular at the time. But also, there is going to be, in a few years, hopefully, somewhere, children, not children, adults, who really remember fondly the Capaldi and Smith episodes. Yeah. And maybe, eventually, some Jodie Whittaker fans as well. And, I think there will just be this cycle of people, your age and, Tom's age, who grew up relatively young, watching the Matt Smith era. And because I'm starting to notice it now already, but people, referring to the Matt Smith stuff as the kind of, not the glory days of where everything was perfect, but as a kind of underrated era. Yeah. Because the children who it was aimed at are growing up, and that's cool. I'm going to do something that's bad for podcast like etiquette, and I'm going to completely rewind a few moments, and because there was something you said that I wanted to pick up on.
Right.
I'm going to completely stop the pace of the podcast to try and remember it.
That's fine.
You said that you had a year where you stopped talking about Doctor Who, and because you were burnt out from a disappointing kind of holiday period resolution came out, Series 11. That's really, really funny to me, because I would say I am currently in this period when it comes to Star Wars, because I have not spent any time thinking or reading or watching Star Wars this year, except for The Mandalorian. So I'm starting to get better. But for me, my resolution is the most recent Star Wars film, Episode 9.
Yeah.
I watched that and had probably the exact same reaction. I just got burnt out. I had no interest, and I think I went way too hard on Star Wars for years, and then suddenly was just like, I'm not interested anymore.
Yeah.
So I would say that I'm currently in your year where you didn't talk about Doctor Who. I haven't spoken about Star Wars this year, but I think that I'm ready to again soon. So hopefully my channel will start to be incorporating videos, not necessarily all about Star Wars and Doctor Who, because I don't want to kind of restrict myself any more than I have to. I'm going to make a video about Knives Out. I've got a script I'm working on at the moment. And I'm going to just talk about anything really that I really think about. I'm hoping to do that soon, because otherwise I will just build a subscriber base of just people who are expecting Doctor Who content, and branching out will become harder. So while I'm still getting started, I'm under 1,000. I can give it a go.
Yeah, certainly.
Fingers crossed.
Certainly.
Because I hope that, and this is why I like to bring a bit of my personality into my videos, coming back to something I said about an hour ago. I like to bring in kind of maybe some jokes and whatever. People will hopefully come back for me, not necessarily regardless of what I'm saying, but they'll maybe listen to, because I don't know, have you ever seen Jenny Nicholson on YouTube?
Yes, I have.
She is, to me, one of just the gold standard of like a personality that is so interesting and so funny that you don't care what she's talking about. I watch her talk about the Land Before Time movies. I've not seen a single one, but I saw her rank all of them, and that video was maybe an hour long, and I enjoyed it and I laughed and it was funny. And and she did a whole thing about bronies and the My Little Pony, kind of that part of the brony fandom, and I watched that and I had no interest in it at all, but it was great content. And I think I do not think I am as interesting or as funny as Jenny Nicholson, but if I can hopefully be someone who, if I have something to say about something, people might check it out, even if they're not necessarily the biggest fans of it. Hopefully, that's the dream, because I'd love to just be able to be like, oh, I think I'll talk about, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, Chicken Little, or if I just wanted to make a Chicken Little video essay, or a Chicken Run video. Maybe I'll do a trilogy of chicken films, but I need to find a third. But I would hope that people had enough faith in me and my content to give it a try.
Well,
absolutely. Who knows? I'm still kind of let me check how many videos I've made, because I reckon I'm talking like I'm some kind of established YouTuber, but I've made like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've made 6 videos. So I'm hardly I'm not Jenny Nicholson, but I'm not people like you and like Cynical Who and Tom and Harbo. I'm really in the early days, but hopefully on track to do, can keep this up somewhat. I don't know.
Certainly. And you're certainly on the right track. Absolutely. I certainly agree. It was something I said to Winky Media when I got him on the podcast. That I said that, a lot of the time when you're watching a YouTuber, you subscribe for one type of content, and then over time you just enjoy their videos and you enjoy them as a creator. You just end up watching videos that you're not really interested in, but you're interested in the creator, so you'd watch them. So I said to him that, even though I have no interest in Pokemon or Transformers, which he has made videos on, I found myself watching them just because I like him as a creator. And I think that's certainly something that as I mentioned before, my channel was never supposed to be purely Doctor Who. I've made a lot of different types of content in the past, but I think now I have been maybe too much narrowing in on Doctor Who, and I think certainly in the new year I would like to do more different types of content, because I have these playlists, obviously a Doctor Who playlist, a Marvel playlist, a DC playlist, and a Star Wars playlist, and I noticed not only like how many more videos I'd made of Doctor Who related. I think I've made like over 110 Doctor Who videos and about like 20 Star Wars videos, or maybe not even 20 Star Wars videos in 3 years, which just shows how many Doctor Who videos I've made. But I was looking and I've just like, I haven't made a Marvel related video in over a year. I haven't made a Star Wars video in probably over a year, I want to say. I haven't really made a DC video in quite a while. The last one I made was like a Batman trailer reaction, but other than that, I really haven't made one since for a long while. So ultimately, I do want to bring those passions back. I suppose I wouldn't really say like it's necessarily like noticeably burnt out like I was with Doctor Who in that year I took a year off, but I certainly have noticed that I wouldn't say not really been bothered about Star Wars, but I haven't really been thinking about it much this year at all, really. Obviously a similar thing to you, which is probably why I haven't made so many Star Wars videos. However, that's certainly something I want to do. I really want to catch up with The Mandalorian because late last year I started watching The Mandalorian when season 1 was out, and I got about 4 episodes in because I was watching it with my dad because he's a Star Wars fan. And ultimately we then kind of took a break to have like a bit of a sequel trilogy marathon just before going to see Rise of Skywalker, and then I never got round to finishing it, and obviously everyone's raving about Mandalorian season 2, and I've been seeing so much of it, so many people raving about it on Twitter, so many videos coming out, even just people at sixth form, just recommending Mandalorian to me. So I certainly need to finish it, and when I do finish it, I may make a video on it, because I think the only video I've made on The Mandalorian was a video in 2018, which is a video which I totally don't agree with now. A stupid video of when The Mandalorian was announced, of me essentially saying, if it isn't Django or Boba Fett, why make the show? Which I essentially disagreed with like a year afterwards when The Mandalorian came out, and even when the trailers came out. Actually, no, I tell a lie, I have made trailer reactions for The Mandalorian when the trailers came out. Or the one trailer, shall I say, that I'm pretty sure came out for it originally. But I'm pretty sure by that trailer reaction, I was already like, no, this looks absolutely awesome. Why did I say that in that stupid video in 2018? But no, I certainly want to make a video on that. I want to make a video, some more Marvel videos. I think I want to make a video on Marvel of, again, I don't know whether Doctor Who has just overtaken my life this year, but again I felt a bit unenthusiastic about Marvel, something that I was like really into last year.
Marvel. No. Last year was huge for the MCU and
exactly.
Marvel in general, and had so many superhero films. This year hasn't been, we've had no MCU things. There'll be no MCU things at all this year, I think, because WandaVision has been pushed back to January the 15th. So 2020 will just be the year that has no entries at all. So it is, and I think, just talking about the Marvel films, Endgame felt very final.
Yeah,
Far From Home felt very kind of maybe like an epilogue, and maybe like the start of a new beginning. But with questions about rights and Spider-Man and Sony and Disney, when we didn't really know how that was going to play out and if it would play out on screen. So there was just this feeling of just like the Marvel universe is over. But I think
that's kind of what I felt. And I think it's still at the time, I still now, I suppose I see all these, announcements for these, Marvel projects, and I'm thinking, that's cool, but it kind of feels like the MCU kind of ended with Endgame, even though obviously they had so many different characters to continue, obviously, Spider-Man, obviously Black Panther, until Chadwick Boseman's unfortunate passing. But they had so many properties to continue that after Endgame I was like, this feels like a good finale. But who cares? I want to see all these different characters. And now I'm kind of thinking, actually, as much as you do need to continue the stories of these characters, Endgame did just feel kind of final, and I don't have that same enthusiasm for it. I think that's a mixture of, loving Endgame and thinking it was just a great finale and it feeling very final. Being really excited for Far From Home, and then ultimately I was a bit disappointed by it. And I think, Doctor Who taking over my life once again this year, after having, a year last year where Doctor Who really wasn't at the forefront of my mind. I watched about one Series 12 trailer, and I think if I hadn't really seen it on Twitter, I wouldn't have really known Series 12 was on. I really didn't care that much. And then as soon as I watched the first episode of Series 12, it was almost like instantly, like my enthusiasm for Doctor Who came back, and I wanted to, talk about it again. And then even though ultimately, the timeless Children I wasn't a big fan of, and I got a bit ranty about that. More angry than I should have done about it. But unlike Series 11, well, I wouldn't say I was angry at Series 11. I controversially really didn't enjoy Resolution. And yeah, unlike Resolution and Series 11, which really made me feel burnt out with Doctor Who, even though I really didn't like The Timeless Children, like that enthusiasm for Doctor Who still stayed with me, which was a bit bizarre, but obviously that's why I've been making so many
I
Doctor Who
understand
videos.
that about Series 12. Like, I mean, I think overall, and this is maybe a hot take, overall, the Chibnall era, I would probably give a... Now, it's a very unenthusiastic thumbs up, too. It's not... I don't think it's for me. I don't think it's what I want from the show. But I think if I was having to balance the negatives and the positives, it might be like... And I'm talking 51%.
Yeah.
51 out of 100. Rather than it's really great and I love it. But I think that... And I think Series 12, there's something about it that I think felt better.
Yes.
Than Series 11. I can't put my finger on what it is. I still don't like Jodie Whittaker very much as the Doctor. I think she's a wonderful woman and a great actress or actor or however she wants to call herself. But I think she's great. I don't know if she's just miscast or if they've just not defined the role or anything, but that Doctor just isn't for me. Right?
Yeah.
And I don't think it's the companions either, because I don't really love them. I think Ryan and Graham... Their story really finished in Resolution, so I don't really know what they were still doing throughout Series 12. So everything is working against Series 12, but I still had quite a nice time with it overall.
Yeah.
And I don't... Maybe it's just because I was in my grumpy Star Wars phase, and I was just like, great, it's anything new to get excited about, even if it's not quite what I'm looking for in the show. But yeah, I've really gone big on Doctor Who, probably for the first time since, like, I think, because I started being a fan in like 2012, 2013, and then really got into like the Doctor Who community and everything in like 2014 with Series 8 coming out. I was like, oh, it's crazy, it's a new Doctor, it's great. I watched the new Doctor TV show. I was really hyped, and it wasn't... I felt like Series 8 was pretty okay. I think it took a while for me to get used to Peter Capaldi. And I think looking back, the episodes are probably better than I remember. And every episode I've rewatched from Series 8 and 9, I've enjoyed more. But I think I will just have to rewatch that whole era at some point. But that's when I was, I was on Instagram and I just followed every Doctor Who account I could find. I was just like, this is great. And it was all just like reposting Tumblr things and editing scenes. What happens, Who-Lock and Super Who-Lock or whatever. I was never into Supernatural, but Sherlock was fun at the time. And then I kind of like stepped away a bit from that side of the fandom and kind of did nothing until like 2017, when kind of TARDIS posting kind of exploded onto the scene with hilarious but maybe a bit too edgy memes. And but I think TARDIS posting back then was very much was a response to Tumblr positivity. It was like, we're gonna be mean and we're gonna make rude jokes and we're not your granddad's Doctor Who group, that's for sure. It was like, but I think it maybe went a bit overboard. But since then, it's become a really nice and accepting and really like diverse and kind community that is still very funny. So I think that's my experience with the show has for the last 3 years has been so tied to that group on Facebook, just because of the Scongo stuff, and because every time I see an episode, even if I don't enjoy it, I'm like, well, there'll probably be some funny things about it. And then obviously now I've started following a lot of Doctor Who people on Twitter, partially thanks to making that World Enough in Time video, and George inviting me to join the quizzes with the other Doctor Who people, and that's how I met you, and I met, Dan and Cynical and Tom and Harbo and all sorts of people. So I think it's nice to feel part of a community.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
I think in a way, I've never felt that way about Star Wars. I have a few friends who I talk about Star Wars to all the time, right? But because Star Wars is so huge, it's really hard to feel like you're part of something. especially because the people who do kind of form little cliques are horrible.
Yeah.
The Star Wars, I mean, it's the same with like Not My Doctor people in Doctor Who, but I think because Doctor Who is smaller, you get these little sects of people in these little mini communities and you feel like you know people, and you're like, oh, there's people from YouTube, oh, there's people from Twitter, whatever, and everyone seems to be at least vaguely aware of each other, in a friendly way, and then there's also the negative side. There's the Not My Doctor people, which, and I've said myself, I don't really like the 13th Doctor, but I'm in no way at all. I'm wholeheartedly against that kind of negative side.
Yeah,
of the
absolutely. I'm the same. At the end of the day, I'm not the biggest fan of Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, but it's not because she's a woman or anything she supposedly represents or anything. It's more down to stuff like characterization, writing, all that kind of stuff, and I certainly, but the thing is, though, I do understand how some people can get sucked into it. I think that probably at the time when Jodie Whittaker was cast, and I was younger back then, and I was like, "Girl, I don't want a female Doctor. This ruins everything." I probably, without knowing it, I mean, I imagine I probably watched one of their videos just to feel validated, in quotation marks, and I imagine that if I hadn't grown up a bit by the time I got to series 11, I think I could have quite easily been persuaded into becoming friends with them. Like Tom said, obviously I had Tom on the podcast, and he spoke about this, how he was quite young, quite impressionable when I wouldn't say they lured him in, because that's as much as I don't like the NMDs, that makes it sound like something it certainly wasn't, but he got sucked into that kind of that crowd, I suppose, and also when you dislike something and you don't really know why, I think it's quite easy to just kind of jump to what other people are saying and think probably. Well, yeah, I something I still massively regret. Was, I don't know if you know the Galactic Yo-Yo podcast. One time they got someone on to speak about Hellbent, and they said, put your stuff in the comment section that you dislike about Hellbent, and at the time I was younger than I am now. I put a really horrendous comment in where I essentially said, blah blah blah. They ruined the Doctor's character by making him shoot the General completely out of character, and then finished it by, all for the sake of a fucking PC regeneration. And I hate that because, at the end of the day, that's not really what I meant. Obviously, no. I don't like the scene, but it's because of the fact it gets the Doctor out of character. And the General regenerates out of nowhere, but it has nothing to do with the fact that the General regenerates from a white man to a black woman. It has nothing to do with that. But at the time, I was just trying to think of, why did I not like this? And unfortunately, I ended up putting that comment in, and they unfortunately read it out on the podcast, and it was all very, very embarrassing. And for a while, I really dislike Galactic Yo-Yo for like how they handled that, but then over time I thought about it and thought, actually, I was in the wrong. I should have never said that. And now I'm so glad that when I'm trying to get people on the podcast, no one ever thinks you're that one guy, or who said those things, because I certainly, probably when I was younger, I wouldn't say came across as an NMD, because I certainly wasn't. I've never used that hashtag. I've never felt that strongly about it, but there certainly were occasional things where I may have used the politics as a reason why I disliked it, whereas now, as looking on it much more maturely, I can now confidently say that my reason for not being as big a fan of this current era has nothing to do with the politics at all. I couldn't care about the politics. It doesn't even really bother me. It's all to do with characterization, but I certainly think it's quite easy to be suckered into that. And I think if perhaps I was even though I was younger, I still made bad decisions, like I said, about that response to that Galactic Yo-Yo tweet, but I was so lucky that even then doing that, I wasn't suckered into that NMD crowd, and now
you have sympathy for people who do, because I think if you again, this is a really tricky thing, because it's so partisan. It's so like you're either with them or against them, and you're either like a huge Jodie fan or you're a sexist bigot, right? And I think it's hard when I think there are very much extremes. And I would say here that the sides are not just as bad as each other, right? I think a lot of people say that. It's like, well, no, not my doctor people are just as bad as people.
Yeah,
on
I'm
the
someone who
pro-Jodie
used to say that. I used to say that quite a lot and think quite a lot. And I think
know-
especially in maybe
Tom said
in
it,
Series
but it's-
11, during that time, I remember there was quite a bit of toxicity from both sides. I remember rightly, but now I feel like the toxicity's died down from the quote unquote Jodie love side and the Jodie hate side has almost like increased it in the hate side. I feel like wow.
But I would say that the toxic positivity is an issue because it can alienate people. If you say like everyone who doesn't love this is this, then these people who don't like it for valid reasons, the only places they can feel safe in the community are watching videos complaining about Jodie Whittaker. And in these videos, they talk about how it's woke, they talk about how it's propaganda, they talk about all these things. And then, if you watch so much of this, it just becomes true to you, But I think as much as that toxic positivity is an issue on the Jodie love side, I still think that kind of, I don't know, maybe it is just as bad. But I think that as far as numbers go, it's very much the people just trying to enjoy it and just enjoying themselves. And on the other side, their whole thing seems to just be, we hate. And I think maybe just because that seems to come from a real place of anger at women, and not to completely generalize, but I don't care about who I alienate on that side. But I just think it is dangerous, and a lot of people go through a kind of edgy phase whenever they're kind of 16, 15, 14, whatever. And YouTube is really bad for that. You watch one funny video of a crazy feminist, and then it spirals, and you get recommended all sorts of things about kind of why women are ruining films, and the SJWs, and then you're suddenly like, yeah, I do hate the SJWs.
Yeah, exactly. I think I was almost, I wouldn't say suck it in because I was never that strongly about it, but even I at the time of when I didn't like Doctor Who Series 11, I didn't like The Last Jedi, and all of a sudden in my head was like, it all makes sense. It's this and this and this, which obviously it wasn't that
really
at all.
Easy,
but,
a really easy scapegoat for it is like, okay, could it be that this thing went down a creative direction I wasn't liking, or could it be that they deliberately sabotaged it for the sake of a political agenda?
Well, exactly. It's very easy to think of that, and I think especially as now all media is becoming more progressive, I think that it's very easy to have a one size fits all answer if you don't like something, because I can guarantee if there's a piece of media you don't like that's been recently released, you can use the excuse, oh, it's because SJW, because all media is becoming more progressive, so therefore if you don't like something you can probably more inclusive, more diverse, so therefore if you don't like something you could probably say it's because of this diversity hire, and people would probably think it's a valid argument, because a lot of people want it to be a one size fits all answer. A lot of people want to say it's the reason, it's not just that all these shows are coincidentally not doing as well as I would have liked, it's because all their downfalls, they're all linked somehow, and I think it's certainly an easy path to go down. I've been down that path myself, not as extreme as some people, thankfully, unlike Tom, I never got suckered into it, but I think everyone, well, I'm not going to say everyone, but a lot of people go through a bit of a phase like that, and thankfully now that I can look at things more maturely, and I think that, like I was saying, that maybe the fandom was more toxic on both sides during Series 11. I don't know whether that was it, or maybe I just had, more sympathy for the NMDs than I do now, so therefore, whenever someone attacked them, I didn't like the NMDs, but I'd kind of think, maybe that was a bit mean, whereas now I'm just like, no, it's not really. So I don't know whether I don't know whether it was more toxic on both sides, or I was just...
and it was just this kind of stigma of like, oh, they're the crazy feminists, they'll hate you if they, This kind of
I think I
this
was just
horrible
probably
kind
more
of
hard
perception.
on the liking Jodie side back then. It's probably a bit of
Yeah.
both. It probably was a bit more toxic on both sides
No,
back
I
then,
don't
but I
think.
think it's also a lot of the fact that I've matured now and gained more perspectives on what kind of creators I like, I guess. And I think it essentially to backtrack a bit on what you said about feeling part of a community. That's certainly something I've experienced this year, alongside yourself, because, before, George Marshall, part of Time of Hoovians United, for those who may not know, added me to the quiz. I hadn't really interacted with anyone, any Doctor YouTubers, any real Doctor, fans that I didn't, occasionally know from school or whatever. So, it is really nice to, speak to people, speak to different, content creators, to, feel part of a community. And I certainly think that perhaps that's another reason why some people, get suckered into that, because it's, nice to have a community where you can speak to people about Doctor Who. Sometimes it's just a bit unfortunate that sometimes those people aren't particularly nice and will turn on you, I suppose. But
Yeah.
it's very easy to see why people fall into that trap, I suppose. But I'm quite thankful that the community me and you are both in now, and obviously feel involved in and feel a part of is quite a nice community. And obviously we all have different opinions on Doctor Who. I have very different opinions on Doctor Who to you, but we still get on and have a good time.
Me too. Although I don't think I can see past this Last Jedi slightly. That's something I have to draw the line there.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, I would say that I'm not a big fan of the Capaldi era, but then again, I don't want the chances of this podcast just ending now. So I think we should go no further on that.
Joe Brennan has left the call. I don't care what people think, really.
Yeah.
I think if, like I said earlier, like any kind of gatekeeping is just stupid and tired.
Absolutely.
And I just think let people enjoy things, find common ground if you want to have fun conversations, or maybe just have civil and enjoyable disagreements with people. But I think it often becomes very personal, and I think once you attach a level of like your own identity to something, it becomes like criticisms of that feel very personal. I think once you say like, I will defend this with my life, then suddenly someone's saying that they don't like something, and I'm guilty of it as well. I take all criticism of any Rian Johnson thing very personally, and I don't quite know why, but I feel a compulsion to defend it. And he doesn't need defending. He's a big boy, but I think it's just once you call yourself a fan of something, maybe it just comes from like when you're a child and people like say that your toy isn't as cool as theirs, and you just it is because it's like one of three things you care about in the world. Like maybe it's all part of that. But I think people just need to be, and this podcast is going to go out and people listen to this and suddenly all problems in the world will end because I said to be nice to people. But I think that I think it's just something that needs to happen. I'm thinking of, and I'm really not sure I should do this because I don't think I'm educated enough, but I would really like to make a joke video where I'm not, I don't know enough about Not My Doctor because I really just stay away from that side of the internet.
So do I stay away
I'd
from
love
it.
to parody them in a way, because I actually do have issues with the politics of the Chris Chibnall era. Funnily enough, unlike these people, I don't think it's left-wing enough. I think it is fake woke, and it's pretending to be progressive, but is actually rather conservative. And I think on the surface, you've got a few gay characters, you've got a very diverse cast as far as the races go. The kind of actual nitty-gritty, get down to it politics. Jodie Whittaker seems very, very pro-Amazon in Kablam.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's, it's kind of, it doesn't seem to know what it's doing. And it seems to be anti-Trump, but not necessarily anti the system that he profits from. It's really bizarre. And I think in order to make this a video that is funny and an actual argument of kind of the show needs to become more progressive, I think I would have to know more about this era because I haven't seen any episode since it aired. So I think I have to. I just have to maybe rewatch it. Maybe just leave it as a fun idea in my head. But I think that it's really funny that people are seeing this as this SJW kind of awful, lectury, preachy series. But I think that really, when it comes down to it, the politics are further to the right than they have ever been in New Who. I think that the Russell T Davies and the Moffat era I think Moffat had issues with representation. I think he wrote what he knew, and he knew about white men and white women and straight white men and straight-ish white women, and his issue with women was that the only gay characters he would make were sexy lesbians. So I'm not saying he was perfect when it came to representation, but I'm saying that politically he had a lot more kind of progressive ideas. And it's just funny that people don't see that as political, but they do see a black companion as the height of political agenda, where, I think the world has moved on from that being a big deal. I think it's so ridiculous that they think this is really the worst thing the show can do. But that's just an idea I have. I don't think I'm alone in it. I think a lot of people are kind of critical of Chibnall's approach to politics on both sides. Maybe it's just right in the center, and everyone wants it to be pulled onto their side because they're the correct side of history. I think it's funny that the show is in such a weird thing. I think I kind of wish that Moffat had done a female. I mean, actually, no, I really do not wish Moffat.
I was going to say
that would have been awful. That would have been, oh my god, she would have worn leather. She would have been a sexy, dirty talking kind of I'm talking Irene Adler from Sherlock kind of doctor, and I really don't want that. But around 2010, 2011 would have been a great time for a female doctor, because it would have been before the edgy 2015 anti-SJW internet thing. I think if Russell T Davies had done one, I don't know how it would have been received, but I get the feeling it would have been better, and it would have normalized it before that every woman on screen was deemed political.
I think that regardless of Moffat's writing or his ability to write a female doctor, I feel as if when Capaldi was cast, obviously I think Capaldi's great casting for the Doctor, don't get me wrong, but I think 2014, 2013 kind of time probably would have been a good time potentially, because I feel as if RTD, he's very much trying to steady the ship, get Doctor Who established. After Eccleston goes after one series, it probably would have been a bit of a risky move. Probably same with Moffat for his first Doctor. He needed to show that he could still maintain the level that RTD was working on. It was important not to make too many creative risks. So I feel like after Matt Smith, a female Doctor, would have been, I feel like that would have been the best time to do it, because I don't think that SJW stuff was that vocal in terms of 2014 times.
Less of a risk than Peter Capaldi. I think a female Doctor in 2014, 2013.
If you cast, I know obviously Jodie wasn't the actress she is now, but you transport Jodie, you put her in 2014 as she is now, and cast her, she probably would be better received. Actually,
more popular, than suddenly going to an old Doctor that people weren't ready for. I think. I mean, we'll never know. We're just speculating hypotheticals, but I really feel like that would have. People, I know so many people who just decided not to watch it when Peter Capaldi joined the cast, became the lead, because he was old, because he wasn't what they were expecting or what they wanted from the character. Because Matt Smith and David Tennant, very similar Doctors. I think, obviously, they are not the same, and they are vastly different. Some people love one and hate the other, love both, hate both, whatever. But
on the surface, they're quite different. On the surface, they're quite similar,
they're very similar Doctors. But then, obviously, there is more depth to them than that. But I think that, to people who are casual fans, it's the Doctor, right? But then, when it comes to Peter Capaldi, that's something else entirely, and people just give up on it. Because on the surface he's very different, and actually all the way he is just very different.
All the way throughout, he's just his characterization keeps on varying. But no, certainly I think that a 13th, I keep saying a 13th Doctor, a female Doctor, would have actually probably been more successful then, because I think also you get a lot of young children saying, "Oh, I don't want an old Doctor," and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it probably, would have been quite successful because, even though Jodie, shock horror, I know no one would have noticed, is actually a woman, who would have guessed it? Her personality is very familiar. I wouldn't say she's even very feminine in her attributes. I feel like her personality is very gender neutral. Her personality is obviously very similar to Smith and Tennant. I'm not the first person on the internet to say that, but no, she obviously, regardless of her gender, she is very safe. That was probably a conscious decision to make her, to change her gender, but have her characterization be the safest Doctor we've probably ever gotten.
I would say that's probably true. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, again, I think it's very similar to, and I hate to go back to this, but I think it is surface level, really radical and new.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, not very adventurous at all.
Yeah, certainly.
And not as maybe progressive as they could have been.
Well, yeah.
I think it's interesting, and I'm interested to see where they go from here, because I don't think you can go back to a male Doctor, because
it's a dilemma, isn't it?
You get people saying, yeah, they've gone back to normal. And for me, the thing I want is that Joe Martin just becomes the Doctor. I don't
I think that would be a good the thing is that I don't think the Timeless Children ever flat out says that she's before Hartnell. It just kind of you see all these multiple Doctors, you see the Morbius Doctors, and then Ruth just shows up. So it never flat out says that she was an incarnation before Hartnell, and I almost feel like that was kind of like a conscious decision, in case they do want to go into a different direction, they can do. But no, it is a difficult thing, because obviously if you return to a man, everyone will say, it was a failed experiment. But then if you return to a woman, you'll get loads of people saying, the Doctor's just going to be a woman from now on. And I think certainly you can see from Missy, because I always thought that was going to be a difficult direction. Where do they go? Do they cast another female master? Do they go back to a male master? But now you've got another male master, and I love Sash Dhawan, but now you've got another male master. It does very much feel like Missy isn't an incarnation of the master. She's the female master, if that makes sense. She's Missy, the rest are the master. She's the female master.
That's interesting, because I'm thinking now, if there was another female master, what would she be called? Because Missy is Michelle Gomez.
Yeah.
Missy is that incarnation. But maybe you just bring back another. Maybe she would just be the mistress. Maybe I guess that's what you do. You just call her the mistress.
I suppose I guess I know why Moffat did it. It gives Michelle Gomez a lot of personality. It was obviously part of the arc in Series 8, but I almost feel like her being called Missy and not the Master almost does make her feel more like the female Master, that she's Missy, the rest of the Master. I feel like if she was obviously Michelle Gomez, but she was just called the Master, admittedly she wouldn't have that same level of originality or uniqueness to Missy that Michelle Gomez has, but also it almost makes her stand out, maybe for the wrong reasons, because I feel like if you're having a female version of anything, you'd not necessarily want them to blend in, but you wouldn't want that to be the gimmick of that master or that Doctor, if you know what I mean. Whereas I feel like by naming Missy, giving her a different title to all the other masters, it does make her feel almost a bit gimmicky. And I think certainly they justify it by having Michelle Gomez, who's brilliant in the role. But I think a lot of creative decisions made, really, and obviously going back to a male master now, it does make Missy feel like the female master rather than just another incarnation who just happens to be a woman.
Thinking about it really did help with her redemption. Because I can't imagine, because the fact that she was Missy and Missy's redemption, and then the Master showed up and everything. Yeah. And he when he pleads with her, he's like, Missy, please, And I think it would be hard to be like, Master, please, that doesn't provide a very.
I think the whole thing of John Sim, the evil Master, shows up, and he's referred to as the Master, she's referred to as Missy. It does certainly, obviously they do that purely to distinguish the two. Because you couldn't call him John Sim's Master, canonical on screen. So you have had to distinguish them to.
That was a really tricky thing to write about for my Dr. Falls. They go they're the same person, and they've got the same history, and it's so annoying.
Yeah, but I think certainly, in terms of just the titling alone, it does make it feel like, especially with the redemption arc with Missy turning good, it does very much feel like, John Sims, the proper master, the evil master, and she's, Missy, the more, more emotionally vulnerable and, who is turning good. And I think a lot of these things are purely coincidental, but I do think when you all add it together, I think it does unfortunately just make Missy feel like, the female master, unfortunately. And I suppose that's something you may not want to risk when casting the next Doctor. I feel like you probably wouldn't risk that. And, even though, as I said, I don't think Jodie is very gender specific in terms of her personality, if you cast another man straight after, she would be known as the female Doctor, I suppose.
No, she really would be.
So I guess you'd probably want to avoid that, but luckily me and you don't have that job of who we're going to cast as the next Doctor, because I wouldn't want to be in that position.
I don't envy Chibnall.
No, not at all.
Chibnall. I don't. People on Twitter and Facebook call him Chin Balls.
Oh, Chin Balls! I've seen that. Yeah. It's so funny.
But I just completely forgot what his name was. So awake for too long.
Yeah.
But I don't envy him. I'm critical of what he's done with the show, but I think he's probably just a nice man trying his best. I think, I would do things differently, but I'm not in his position, and I am not qualified to be in his position. So, I think a lot of people with their criticism of writers, directors, showrunners, whatever, it just becomes very personal. It's like, Chibnall did this because he hates this, or Stephen Moffat did this because he thinks he's really clever and he wants to show us he's clever. Or but then, with Stephen Moffat, there are probably some valid criticisms about why he made his female characters act a certain way. Or like, they wrote this character like this because they're a bad person. It's like, no, you just don't like what they've made, I think. And, I'm sure I'd love to, have a chat with Chibnall, go for a coffee, just speak to him about Doctor Who, because I find him interesting.
Certainly.
All showrunners are interesting, but I think I don't envy him, and in the same way I have suggestions, and he should definitely follow everything I say. So he should watch my Timeless Child video or whatever it's called, and just learn from that, and just base the next couple of series on what I want the show to be, because I'm the only audience member that matters.
I certainly don't envy him, and it would just be interesting to obviously just speak to Chibnall, about his ideas, because it would certainly be interesting to hear it all from his point of view, because so many people rip into Chibnall. I'm guilty. I've ripped into Chibnall in the past, but I feel like it would just be interesting just to speak to him and see what it's like from his point of view, and see what it's like with him making the decisions from his perspective. I'm sure it will be truly fascinating. And I certainly don't envy him. He certainly has a very interesting decision to make with the casting of the next Doctor, if not more pivotal than his casting of the first female Doctor. It's all about where you go from after that, because I had a thing, it's not even the next Doctor. If Chibnall casts a female Doctor, but then he leaves and we get a new showrunner, if they cast a new Doctor, would the female Doctor thing be seen as purely and exclusively a Chibnall thing? How would that happen? It's all these different questions. So I think almost, I'm not going to say the easy part, but the easy part was casting a female Doctor. I think like the harder part is, where do you go after that? How do you continue casting the Doctor going forward, when you're now taking into account actors from both genders? And unfortunately, I'd like to say just cast the best person from the job, but unfortunately there's a lot more factors in terms of how it would be seen by the fandom and the public, that unfortunately you need to take a lot more into consideration when casting this next Doctor. As much as I'd like there not to be so much of this going into the casting decision, which really should be purely on acting ability, unfortunately there is all this stuff going into it, and he really does have to take this thing, or to take all of this into consideration, because obviously
I don't really have a problem with kind of going in with an idea of it being a man or a woman, because I know that
Yeah.
when casting he wanted a female doctor. But I think, you know, if you have an idea for a doctor, you should have like an idea of who what their character is going to be, right? I think you think, okay, this is going to be a mean doctor, obviously with very, very broad strokes. Like this is going to be a grumpy doctor, a funny doctor, a really sarcastic, dry doctor, whatever. But you need to know going in, and then you say, okay, I have an idea that it'll be a kind of commanding, charismatic woman. I will look for actors in that kind of field, and I don't think necessarily you can just say. Maybe, you know, in an ideal world, you could just say a person, but maybe the showrunner has a really specific idea of the kind of thing they want. And I don't mind if that is gender specific, but I think it should be, and again, if there was absolutely no politics taken away from it, it should be a creative thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But also, you know, you can't underestimate just how great it is that there is a female doctor. You know, how great that is for female fans and, you know, male fans as well. And just what a great step in the right direction it is. Not that it has to continue down female doctors forever, but I think it, on the whole, it's a positive. And I think I just wish I liked it more, so I can get behind it, because I think. But you know, I'm really interested to see where the show goes from here.
Certainly.
I'm always excited to see what the next Doctor's going to be. I hope the show is popular enough to keep going long enough for me to see things like this. I don't really follow things like ratings very closely, but I know that the show's not quite where it was in 2006. So I think I just fingers crossed the show keeps going forever and is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all we can really hope for. And hopefully it certainly picks up, and I'm certainly interested to see where Doctor Who goes in the future. We've been recording for an hour and 50 minutes, almost 2 hours now. So I feel like this would be, we've spoken about, a variety of different things. We've spoken about, video essays, just content in general, the Doctor Who community, obviously the 13th Doctor, Scongo, we spoke about that. So obviously we've covered a lot of bases in this podcast, and we've had a varied discussion, and it's been great having you on, Joe.
It's been great being on. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a great discussion. It's been one of my favourite podcasts. I think I've really enjoyed recording this one. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure. Is there anything you wanna plug before you go?
I would just say my channel. I think maybe if anyone's not seen anything, don't start with my Dr. Falls video, because I've had to really ruin it to get past copyright. I've had to make it terribly choppy, so avoid that. Look at any of my other videos for an idea of what it is I do, because I'm really proud of everything except that. But that was just part 2 of 3 that I had to get out somehow. Just my channel is just called Joe Brennan. I think I'm the top result on YouTube now for Joe Brennan. There was another guy who I had to dethrone, but
there can be only one.
Yeah. So just check me out if that's something you think you might enjoy. And, thanks George for having me.
It's been a pleasure, man. It's been a pleasure. And, you guys should certainly go check out Joe's channel. So many good video essays on there, and so many good videos on there. And as you said, you're making more videos. You've got lots more videos in the pipeline, and myself and lots of other people look forward to seeing what content you come out with in the future. I'm sure it'll be brilliant.
Thank you.
No worries. Thanks so much for coming on, man. It's been a great discussion, and thank you all for any viewers who are still listening at this point. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this video, obviously leave a like. Drop a sub if you enjoyed this. If you maybe came from Joe's channel and you enjoy this channel, then please leave a sub. I'm desperate. And obviously likewise, if you didn't know who Joe was, then go over to his channel and give him a sub as well. But thank you all so much for watching this video. Thanks so much, Joe for coming on, and of course, a goodbye.